and milled together patiently, lowing more deeply. The milkmaid opened the gate. She had begun to whistle, tonelessly, between her teeth. The dog barked irately, dashed through the gate as it began to open. A little boy paused in the road beyond. The milkmaid peered at him. "Be that you, Martin Barbour?" she called. The little boy politely pulled off his round black hat and quavered an answer. He came to the fence as though with great and fearful resolution, staring at the cattle which lumbered through the gate. "Still afeard of the poor beasties, Martin?" asked the milkmaid in a jeering but kindly voice. She was an illiterate and buxom wench, but she was unusually shrewd and understanding. "And there he stands, every evening coming from school," she would relate each night to her sister milkmaids, "and frightened to the little heart of him, but standing like a soldier he does, and watches the beasties go through, glowering like at him with their big eyes, sort as if he were thrashing himself inside for being afeard." Martin clung to the fence, shivering all through his small, thin body, but upon his white little face the expression of rigid resolution tightened to one of almost ascetic gauntness. He was terribly frightened. His cold hands sweated on the wet wood which he clutched. He felt his senses swimming and sinking, yet he did not move until the last cow ambled through the gate and started down the road to the barns. Then he stepped away from the fence, not sheepishly before the quizzical eyes of the milkmaid, but quietly and with dignity, as if she understood and had witnessed a scene of acknowledged heroism, as indeed she had. He stood before her, smiling diffidently, shabby but neat in his tight black coat, country boots and round black hat. His hands were ungloved and raw with cold as they clutched a number of old books. There was about him an air of fear and shrinking and a self-acknowledged, self-despising scorn of this fear and shrinking, and refusal to surrender to them. He smiled with a gentle dignity and sweet pride at the milkmaid. "A perfect little gentleman," thought the girl as she always thought when encountering Martin. "His folks ain't gentry, but then he don't seem to belong to them." She beamed at him affectionately as she dropped the wooden bar of the gate into place. "Hey, you worritin' your ma, staying out so late at school?" she asked. "No, ma knows where I am," he replied in his piping child's voice. He tugged his cap and started away, adding, "Good evening, Miss Susie." She watched his small figure trudging steadily down the road until it was lost and enveloped in the gathering mist. She shook her head a little with a strange and primitive sensation of melancholy, and her preoccupied whistling, as she followed the cattle, was more tuneless than ever. It was as if she'd seen a childish ghost, without a past and without a destination, coming from nothingness into a vague present, and going into nothingness. Martin could hardly see the road before him as he went on, though long familiarity with it and his quickened breath told him that it was beginning to rise. He curved his footsteps to follow the curve he knew was there. The road was winding behind a very low hill, hardly more than a rising of the ground. He lifted his small, cold face, which was wet with the moisture of the air. The sky was clearing. Between thick and curdled clouds like heavy sea foam, a star or two glittered, and the tops of distant hills appeared in the distance. And now a wind rose, weighted with salt coldness and freshness. The mist swirled and twisted over the meadows, became horsemen and charging hosts of spectral vapour, sweeping along on an unearthly momentum without sound and without fury. There was something awful in this silent but actively moving panorama, something unconnected with mankind and the earth on which mankind breathed.